Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to talk about this guy right here, my camera bag, or I guess it's more of a camera case. But I want to walk you through what I have every day when I go on a shoot, what I have with me at all times, and kind of walk you through what some of those things are and why I have them with me. And so let's go ahead and dive in. All right, so this is my camera case. This is the Nanuk 938. I went with this option, one, because it's a roller. That was really, really big to me. If I'm carrying a lot of gear and a lot of heavy gear, I want to make sure that this thing can roll rather than being carried, especially on my back. I was just noticing before when I had a backpack, my back would be dead if I was carrying this thing around a lot. And so this way, it's just a more professional case to have, and it's also, you can fit more gear into it, and you can roll it around. It's just a better solution in my eyes when you're doing it professionally. And it just has everything that I need. I don't need a bunch of different cases. I can have pretty much everything that I need in here shy of my lighting and my stands, and that's perfect for me. And so this is actually very, very deep, which is one of the reasons that I liked it as well. You can fit a 7200 vertically and it totally works, which is huge. There's just a lot of space that you gain by having it be that deep. And so anyway, I'll walk you through. There's a couple pieces that are missing because I'm filming with the KOMODO right now. That's set up on a tripod, filming this video right now. And so the pieces that I need for that aren't in the bag, but I'll just show you where those typically would go. And so let's just start off right in this little pouch here. In this pouch here, I would have the monitor for the RED, and so that is the Small HD Indy 7. So I would have the monitor that just slides right down in here, and then I also just tuck the cables I need for it back in there, which is the RED KOMODO control cable, as well as an SDI cable that just tucks right in behind it. It works great, and it's just always there, accessible for when I need it. And then I have the RED KOMODO that with the outrigger handle just kind of fits into this, this kind of square pouch right here. And it's perfect. I just put it down, the handle's right there, easy to grab, fully accessible. It's great, and that just saves me a step from having to take the handle off of it every single time. That's just a tedious process. It's another step to do every time you build it up and take it down. And so having one of those steps eliminated just makes a big difference. And then moving on to here, I have the batteries that I need for operating the KOMODO. And so I have my Sony batteries here that attach the monitor to the Indy 7. I need two to attach to the monitor, and so I actually have 6 of these batteries in there, which I don't know why I have 6 of those. I probably don't need it. But I also, these come in handy for lights and different things like that anyway, so it's nice to have a bunch of those on hand. And then I also have this compartment for the Canon batteries for the KOMODO. I might make the switch to V-mounts. I'm still contemplating that. I like using these just because these are a lot easier when you're mounting it to a gimbal. And so I find that if I'm having to switch quickly between gimbal and handheld, these are the best solution because I can still use them for the gimbal. Whereas if I was V-mount, then I would have to carry both V-mounts and Canon batteries because the V-mounts wouldn't really work for going on the gimbal. And so, I don't know, the jury's still out. I'll make a decision. I would love to go V-mount if I could. If all I did was handheld, I would definitely be using the V-mount solution. But for right now, I'm not quite sure. So I'm still using these for right now. Moving on here, under here, I have 2 GH5s actually, 2 GH5 bodies. And so these are, you know, not the best cameras in the world. They're a little dated at this point, but I have the KOMODO as my main A cam. I use it for, you know, 90% of what I'm shooting. The only time I use these is if I need a B camera or a multi-camera setup or something like that. And so for the money, they're great. Like honestly, I don't think you can find a better camera in that price range just because they're so freaking cheap right now. And so these are a great kind of alternative option that I have. And I've had them for ages, and so I know them inside and out. So they're still kind of like a staple, but in the future, I'd love to upgrade. I'd love to get another B/C camera. Maybe my C camera would be more like photo based, and then the B camera would be just video. So maybe I would actually upgrade the KOMODO to the V Raptor, and then the KOMODO would be the B camera, and then I'd get like an R5 or something like that, or R6 for my kind of photo/video camera. Who knows? We will see. But for right now, I'm still sticking with the GH5s, good old faithful. And beside the GH5s, right in this compartment, I have all the batteries for them. So I have about 7 different batteries for those GH5s. Beside that, it was where my 18 to 35 would go. Right now I'm shooting on it, so it's not in this compartment, but typically I would have my 18 to 35 in this pouch. And then I have this pouch over here, which is my drone kind of pouch here. And so I have the Mavic 2 here with an extra battery. And then I have the controller, some NDs, and then I also have some extra propellers all fit in here. And I just kind of have it packed in such a way that it all kind of fits and works, which is great. Beside that, like I said, this can fit a 7200 vertically, which is great. So this 7200, I have the Sigma 7200. The Canon, V3 is probably still better, but this works. I've had it for ages and it honestly does the job. It's great. And I also, beside that, typically have my 100mm. I think I actually have it here. I'm gonna go get it. There we go. So there's the 100mm. It's a macro, which is great. I love this lens. I honestly, this and the 18 to 35, I typically use hand in hand. And the reason for that is because the 100mm I find so versatile. Yes, it might be better to go with like an 85 and get it to be like a 1.8 or something like that, and it would be beautiful. But I find that having that macro capability and have it be in that kind of like, not the same, but similar focal length to like just, a bit closer than an 85 is honestly perfect for me. Like it looks so good when it comes to portraits, when it comes to, close-ups and stuff like that. And I can get in insanely close for those macro shots. And it's great. Like honestly, if I could run with 2 different lenses, it would be this and the 18 to 35. I can get all my wides. Like I can get really, really wide with the 18. I can get more of my natural kind of wides and mediums with the 35. And then I can get all my close-ups and macro shots with this. It's honestly great. Like those are the 2 lenses. If I could only pick 2 lenses to carry, it would be those 2. Next to those lenses, I have my audio kind of compartment. And so I basically have it sectioned off so that I have different kind of like cases for each of the mics that I'm using. I actually have another case right here for the audio recorder that I have on myself right now, which is a DR10L. And so I have 2 DR10Ls. I have a 10LW, which is the white version, which comes in really well. One, if someone that you're interviewing just has like a white colored shirt or something like that, and the black doesn't work as well. Or if you're doing weddings and miking brides, that comes in really handy as well. Then I also have the black version, which I'm wearing right now, which is tried and true, the classic black. And then below that, I also have a zoom that I use as well. I've had the zoom much longer and it's older. Still works great. I think now after using both the zoom and the DR10L, I do prefer the DR10L just as far as weight and size and form factor. And it has the dual record, which I found to come in really, really useful. The zoom has an auto gain feature, but I find that's not actually as usable. I find that the gain will kind of change on you, and that's not actually what I want. I would rather just use compression, stuff like that in post. And so this still works, but it only kind of records that one channel, which is fine, but not ideal. And so I do like the DR10Ls better, but this is great. I usually, at a wedding, would chuck this on the Efficient or something like that. And I'm not in too many scenarios other than weddings where I need 3 audio or 3 lavs. And so this does the job for me, and it works really, really great. So other than those lav mics, then I have my DR40 case, which is obviously I have the DR40 in it. And then I have 2 cables. This is actually a guitar kind of patch cable between pedals, but I find it's the perfect size for when you're plugging this into an audio system. And so I use one of these for my 1/4-inch setup, and then a small kind of XLR for my XLR plugins. And so that's pretty much all I need. You don't really need any other cables these days. If someone's running RCA, they are probably from the dark ages, and so you don't really need to carry those anymore. And so that's my little kit for the DR40, and that just, again, slides in here to this little cubby. The only other thing that I sometimes use for audio would be like a shotgun mic, but I usually don't keep this in this case. Like this does everything that I need for when I'm on the go. I have a shotgun mic at the office with our studio setup and all of that. And so I would take that individually if I needed to. I could probably just like slide it down in one of the corners here and it would fit. Another perk of this case being so deep, that helps a lot. The next thing is in this little pouch here, I have my last lens, which is my Tekina 11-16. This works decently. Now that I'm shooting Super 35, I do get a little bit of vignetting when I go to like 11, and so I'm typically sticking around that 14-16 range. I might get an updated lens that just works better with the KOMODO, as well as this isn't the sharpest lens in the world. It's okay, it does work decently, and for the money, it's a good lens, but I would like a slightly higher quality lens for my super wide stuff. But the reality is that I don't shoot this wide very often, and I have the 18-35, so 18 is pretty wide. That usually does the trick if I need a pretty wide shot. The only time that I would use this is for like real estate or something like that, where you're really wanting to show the vastness of a space and make it look bigger than it really is. And I don't shoot a ton of real estate, and so I don't really use that often. But it does come in handy sometimes, like when I'm in a pinch and I really need a really wide angle lens, I have it. But I'd say that this gets used like maybe like 2 to 5% of the time. The last compartment in the case itself is this kind of compartment here, and it just has all the kind of like miscellaneous things that I need for my camera equipment. And so stuff from like tripod plates to now that I have a RED, you need the Allen keys and stuff like that to actually rig this thing out. And so I have those tools in a little pouch there. I have some more tripod plates. I've got a Leatherman. This actually comes in useful. Sometimes you definitely need some sort of like tool to use, and you're in a pinch. And so this is really helpful to have on me. I also have an extended SDI cable for when I'm rigging with my Ronin, because the other SDI cable that I have doesn't go far enough. Then I also have, lastly, I have this adapter. I have the variable Canon ND kind of adapter on the camera right now, and that's typically what I use. Typically I'm using some level of ND on the camera because things are bright enough to justify it. But when I'm in really low light scenarios, then I'll pop this adapter on the camera. If I'm shooting weddings, it'll be at like a reception or something like that. That's pretty much the only time that gets used, because if I'm doing corporate shoots or anything like that, any sort of like social media content, ads, like I'm lighting it all myself, and so I don't need this. I have enough light that I just have the ND filter on there, and it works really, really well. And especially when you have any daylight coming in or anything like that, you'll need to use an ND anyway. And so this very rarely gets used. It only gets used when I'm in really, really low light scenarios where the camera just can't handle it. And especially with the RED, you don't want to push its low light capability. I don't go anything above 800 ISO, which is still fairly bright on the RED. Like some different cameras handle ISO in different ways. Sony's, you do have to push the ISO quite a bit to get to a certain level of brightness or exposure, whereas with the KOMODO you don't have to push it as hard, and so 800 does get you decently far. Like I've been in very few scenarios where I have to push above 800 with this adapter, but there are definitely those times where it does need to get pushed, and then you need to add extra lighting in, because if you start pushing the KOMODO above 800 ISO, it's not gonna look pretty, you're gonna get a lot of noise. So either you need to be okay with adding noise reduction in post, or you just set up some lights and prevent against it. So that's kind of that pouch there. The next section is up top here. And I got this little like lid for it, for this case, because it just buys you so much extra room, right? Instead of this being it, and this is all I can carry, now I've bought myself all this real estate up here. And so the first thing is back here, I just have my laptop. There's a special little slip for it, a little pocket, and I can put my cables and stuff like that in behind. There's still room for that. And then I have these 3 different pockets, which is great, because then you can kind of organize it a little bit. And so up top here, I have my SD card case, and then I have 2 SSDs, 2 T5s that I have labeled so that I can tell them apart. and one is a 2 terabyte, one's a 1 terabyte. And I like having two, just because one, if you have like 2 different people on a project or someone forgot a drive, you have a spare and it doesn't compromise you using your own. And also sometimes, you brought one drive and you run out of space and then that's the end of the world, right? Like it's better to just have safety and have a backup in case. The next thing is this pouch down here. This is where I have all my kind of like card readers. And so I have my CFast 2.0 card reader from Red. I actually love this thing. It's basically the same price as any other CFast reader, so you might as well stick with the same brand, just make sure that everything works as it should. And it's an Angelbird reader as well, so that's great. They make good stuff. I also have this kind of dongle here for my Mac with the USB-C, and it has SD, it has USB-C, regular USB 3.0, HDMI, so I'm just kind of set for whatever I need there. And then I have a second dongle for that, which is just micro SD and SD, and this is UHS-2 card reader. And so this is way, way faster. This is like 4 to 5 times faster than this other dongle that I have here. And so whenever I'm offloading, I'm using this guy. The other dongle I use more for like HDMI and USB and stuff like that. The last compartment up here, I just have kind of miscellaneous cables as well as some other things. So I have this ND that I rarely use anymore because I have the variable on the Komodo now. But this is for the 18 to 35, just a screw-on ND filter. I think it's like an ND6 or something like that. So I have that if I need it for some reason. I also have tape and this little pack here. So one, tape's just super useful to have. You might need it at any moment, but it's white because I also double it for, these are little kind of like stick-ons. So if we're miking a bride or if we're just miking someone and don't want the lav visible, then we use these. And so it has these little kind of like sticky pieces here and then these little pieces of like, I don't know, fabric or fur or whatever, where you kind of like stick it onto the other side and the mic just goes right in there and then actually gets taped onto someone's skin or their clothing. And then this tape, if we need it hidden, so for example, on a bride, there's no pockets to put the recorder in, so you have to find out a better solution. So what we'll do is we'll actually just use this tape and get them to tape the recorder onto the bride's leg somewhere so that it's just hidden and it's not affecting, it's not, having to be taped onto the back of the dress or connected on the back of the dress or anything. She can just look the way that she wants to look on the day and not have it obstructed in any way by us adding mics on to like externally that will be visible. We also just have some cables in here. So I have some, adapters that are like USB to, plugging into the wall. That comes in really useful because pretty much every cable, like charging cable ever, uses that. And so then I also have these other cables here. I have a spare cable that goes from the DJI remote, the drone remote, to a phone. I have a spare one of those because sometimes those cables break and then you can't actually operate your drone and that sucks. Then I also have, a couple like lightning cables for charging. I also have a USB-C one just in case. And then I have a couple USB to USB-C cables here because a lot of things require those to charge. The Ronin requires it to charge, as well as some other gear that I have, like my Aperture MX lights and stuff like that. And so super useful to have, or if someone has a PC and they just have USB rather than USB-C, then you can still plug these T5s in using these cables. And so it's just good to have. It's always better to be safe than sorry. So I like to pack with, those things that over the years you just learn that, yeah, you can be in scenarios where you need those specific pieces of gear. And if they're not around, you can be in a bit of a pickle. And so it's good to have it rather than not. And it doesn't take that much extra to, just carry one on you. And so I like to have it with me wherever I go. or have those with me wherever I go. And so yeah, anyway, that's kind of my setup. That's the bag, that's my cameras and all that kind of stuff. And so hopefully that gives you a little bit of an idea of what you could maybe do with your setup. Maybe your setup is even better than mine. I would love to see some pictures or video if you think you have a better setup than me, because I love to learn and to see what other people are doing. So I would love to see it if you have something that fixes some problems that you don't think I was able to solve. Otherwise, hopefully it was helpful. If you like this video, go ahead, give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and we will see you in the next one.